A poor girl wrestles with her dress, and the billionaire CEO finds himself utterly captivated. Clara Collins sprinted down the sidewalk like she was competing in the Olympic hurdle finals, except the obstacles weren't actual hurdles. They were her own tangled legs, a snapped purse strap, and a rebellious ballet flat that flapped against the pavement with every frantic step. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, buried somewhere between a pack of mints and an uncapped lipstick. It was her best friend Elise, sending messages so urgent they might as well have been emergency evacuation alerts. Elise. Clara, you have exactly 5 minutes to get here. Clara attempted to text back while running, but ended up typing something so incomprehensible that autocorrect generously translated it to bringing cheddar and mashed potatoes. She groaned. Survival first, explanations later. Then, in the distance, the towering glass headquarters of Smith Global Group came into view, reigniting a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she could still make it in time. That hope shattered the moment she caught sight of her reflection in the pristine glass. No, her breath hitched, no, her dress, the zipper, meant to be at the back, was in the front. A clothing tag the size of a restaurant receipt clung to her chest like an announcement card. And the neckline, designed for subtle elegance, was now boldly misplaced in all the wrong ways. How did I even? Spinning in circles, she twisted desperately, attempting to inspect the full extent of the disaster. This impromptu fashion fiasco had her flailing so wildly that she nearly collided with a pedestrian. In a series of frantic, almost theatrical motions, she yanked at the hem, twisted the straps, and even tried to tear the tag off with her teeth, all while muttering in exasperation. I should have just worn jeans. Who even designs tags this big? They should be arrested. I am a walking catastrophe. Meanwhile, on the top floor of Smith Global Group, William Smith, a man renowned for his icy demeanor, ruthless efficiency, and a schedule more precise than a Swiss watch, was striding down the hallway, radiating his usual "don't talk to me" energy. He was mentally preparing for yet another mind-numbing merger meeting when a fleeting glance out the window changed everything. What happened in the next 5 seconds would be forever etched into company history. William Smith, the unshakable, notoriously cold CEO, erupted into laughter. A deep, uncontrollable, stomach-clutching kind of laugh that reverberated through the hallways, sending shockwaves through the office. His assistant Ethan rushed in, eyes wide with concern. "Ethan, Mr. Smith, are you okay?" Still breathless, William simply pointed at the window. "Look at this madness. There's a girl down there battling her own dress like it's an enraged octopus." Ethan leaned over to get a better look and spotted Clara, locked in what could only be described as a fight for fashion survival against her own reflection. "I think she's just adjusting her outfit," Ethan offered. "That is not adjusting an outfit," William countered, his laughter growing louder. "That is an all-out war against wardrobe malfunctions." The amusement hit so hard that William had to lower himself into a chair, still catching his breath. "Ethan, cancel my first meeting," he managed, between chuckles. "I need to see this girl up close." Meanwhile, down on the street, Clara finally secured her rebellious dress with a single bobby pin. A hasty solution that left her looking like a mix between an avant-garde fashionista and a survivor of an unexpected clothing catastrophe. She inhaled deeply, examined her reflection one last time, and declared, "This will have to do." With newfound determination, she strode toward the revolving doors, pushing with such force that, for a terrifying second, she nearly wedged herself between the glass panels. Then, as she stepped inside, reality crashed over her like a tidal wave. The lobby was breathtaking. It exuded sophistication, from the polished marble floors to the towering windows that bathed everything in natural light. Even the air smelled expensive. The receptionists behind the sleek desk looked as though they had just walked off the cover of Forbes. Every suit in sight was so crisp and tailored that the fabric gleamed under the ceiling lights. And Clara? Clara looked like she had accidentally wandered in from a backyard barbecue. She approached the front desk, trying to exude an air of confidence and grace. But her loose ballet flat had other plans, producing its signature flap-flap with every step. "Hi, good morning. I'm here for the assistant interview," she said, forcing a bright smile. The kind that teetered on the edge of desperation. The receptionist didn't even glance up. Receptionist. Name? Clara Collins. With a perfectly manicured finger, the woman pointed toward the elevators. 25th floor. Clara stepped inside the elevator and finally exhaled. Alone at last, she caught her reflection in the mirrored walls and gave herself a lopsided smile. "Okay." Everything's under control. Just keep smiling and don't trip. Easy." The elevator dinged, the doors slid open. Clara stepped out and walked straight into William. The collision was so precise, so perfectly timed that his freshly brewed, perfectly scented end of excerpt. Steaming hot coffee transformed into a cascading brown waterfall, drenching his immaculately pressed white shirt in an instant. Clara froze, absolutely dead inside. William stared down at the spreading stain, then slowly lifted his gaze to meet hers. The silence that followed was so thick it felt as though time itself had paused, the entire universe holding its breath. "Oh my God, I'll pay for the shirt!" Clara blurted out in sheer panic, yanking a crumpled $20 bill from the depths of her purse and attempting to shove it into his hand. William blinked, clearly in disbelief. $20? He arched a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "You honestly think that covers the situation?" Clara glanced at the ruined shirt, then at the pathetic bill in her hand, then at the unreadable expression on his face. "Okay. What if I pay in 5 easy installments and throw in some free sass?" she offered, half joking, half pleading. William pressed his lips together, fighting the urge to laugh. "I'm just trying to make it to my interview," she added quickly, her cheeks heating. "I'm applying for the assistant position. Clara Collins." For a brief second, something flickered in his gaze. Then, with a slight smirk, he stepped aside and gestured toward the interview room door. "Oh yeah? Well, good luck, Clara. You're going to need it." Clara, blissfully unaware of who exactly she had just coffee-bombed, mumbled a quick thanks and hurried inside. Surely it can't get any worse, she told herself. Spoiler alert, it absolutely could. The moment she stepped into the interview room, an overwhelming sense of doom settled over her. It felt as though she had already lost the job before even having the chance to properly humiliate herself. Her heart pounded so violently it might as well have been the dramatic soundtrack to a high-stakes thriller. She attempted to take a deep, calming breath, only for the lingering scent of spilled coffee to hit her like a physical slap, an unwelcome reminder of the disaster that had just unfolded in the elevator. The room itself was large, stark, and undeniably intimidating. A sleek glass table stretched between her and the panel of 3 interviewers, so polished that Clara could see her own anxious reflection staring back at her. On the other side, her resume was already in their hands. A miracle, really. It meant the suffering was set to begin immediately. "Miss Collins, is that correct?" asked a severe-looking woman with a painfully tight bun and the kind of expression that suggested she spent her free time sniffing lemons for sport. "Absolutely right," Clara replied, far too enthusiastically. She even saluted. A moment of silence. The panel exchanged subtle glances. "You can start by introducing yourself," said a gray-haired man who looked as though he had just walked off the set of a high-stakes courtroom drama. Clara flashed a bright, confident smile, tossing her hair back with just the right amount of flair. Or so she thought, because the movement also yanked the bobby pin that was holding her dress together, threatening to unravel her last thread of dignity. Still, she pushed forward. "My name is Clara Collins, and I have a passion for learning new things," and, before she could continue, a sound shattered the air. Her phone, which she was absolutely certain she had silenced, exploded with noise at full volume. And it wasn't just any ringtone. It was a chaotic remix of Happy Birthday mixed with an ambulance siren. A true masterpiece, personally crafted by none other than Elise. Panic surged through Clara as she fumbled for the phone, pressing every button in a desperate attempt to stop the audio assault. Instead, she managed to do the worst possible thing. She accidentally answered the call. "Girl, did you get in? Did you spill anything?" Elise's voice blasted through the speaker, loud enough to reach every single person in the room. Clara nearly threw the phone across the room in sheer horror, but settled for hanging up with the force of someone trying to exorcise the device. I'm so sorry," she stammered, her face now the shade of a sun-ripened tomato. "My friend just thought I died. It's a safety protocol, you know." She let out a nervous laugh. No one joined her. The gray-haired man cleared his throat, visibly unimpressed. "Let's continue," he said, adjusting his glasses. "What would you say are your greatest skills?" Clara's brain short-circuited. She needed something intelligent, something professional, something that would make them see her as a highly competent, highly employable candidate. Instead, her mouth decided to betray her. I can do a really great motorcycle horn impression. Silence. The woman with the tight bun blinked, her expression an unreadable mix of confusion and regret. Excuse me? Clara's survival instincts finally kicked in. I mean, work skills, of course, she rushed to correct herself. I'm excellent at improvising. For instance, today, the bobby pin holding my dress together, it also doubles as a fantastic paper clip. Versatility is basically my middle name. The interview panel sat there, clearly still processing whatever had just come out of her mouth, when a gust of wind swept through the open window, and with terrifying precision, Clara's resume, previously lying in perfect position on the glass table, was lifted into the air and sucked straight into the vent, gone forever. Clara lunged for it on instinct, her arm swinging wildly, only to knock over a glass of water in the process. The water spilled directly onto one of the interviewer's documents, sending ink bleeding across the page like a crime scene. "Oh my God. I'll fix it," she blurted out, yanking a piece of paper from her own bag to help. Except it wasn't just any piece of paper. It was her grocery list, boldly written for maximum visibility. Extra strong laxative deodorant that actually works. Sanitary pads. Silence, thick enough to slice with a knife. Clara swallowed hard. Then, in a last-ditch effort to salvage her dignity, she flashed a hopeful smile. "As you can see, I'm extremely organized." The woman with the tight bun let out the kind of sigh that suggested she deeply regretted every life choice that had led her to this moment. She rubbed her temples before asking, "Miss Collins, why do you want to work at Smith Global?" This was it, the question, the one Clara had rehearsed over and over, in front of the mirror, on the bus, in the shower, even while flipping her eggs that morning. She had the perfect answer prepared, and yet, when the moment arrived, her brain transformed into an empty wasteland. Nothing, just a lone tumbleweed rolling by. "Because," she swallowed, stalling for time, "because I need to pay my bills, and it would be wonderful to do that without selling homemade fudge on the street." The gray-haired man slowly removed his glasses. "You do realize this is a serious multinational company, correct?" "Absolutely," Clara nodded eagerly. "Which is why I promise that if you hire me, I will quit selling fudge and dedicate myself entirely to this job. Would you like to try one? I brought free samples." And then, as if the universe had decided to conduct one final dignity test, Clara reached into her bag and pulled out a rolled-up pair of tights. Not fudge. Tights. "That's not a fudge," she muttered, shoving them back in like nothing had happened. The interviewers just stared. This was uncharted territory. They had never encountered a candidate quite like this. The room sat in thick, stunned silence. Then, suddenly, the door swung open. William walked in. His crisp white shirt, still stained with coffee, his face, barely concealing his amusement. He stopped next to the table, arms crossed. Clara turned her head. She blinked. Once, twice, her eyes widened in horror. "You?" she shrieked, pointing at William as if he were a vengeful ghost. The interviewers exchanged baffled glances. "Do you two know each other?" the woman with the bun asked cautiously. "He's the coffee guy," Clara blurted, voice full of righteous indignation. William raised an eyebrow, his smirk growing. "I'm the CEO," he corrected, clearly enjoying this. Clara went completely still. For 2 full seconds, then, barely above a whisper, she muttered, "Can I have a nervous breakdown for just a minute?" William ignored her. "I came here personally to say that the interview can end now." And just like that, the floor disappeared beneath Clara's feet. "This is it," she thought. "I've officially ruined everything." She swallowed hard, already bracing for the rejection. "Of course," she murmured, pushing her chair back. "I understand." But William wasn't finished. "Because she's already hired." Silence. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Clara forgot how to breathe. The woman with the bun straightened in her chair. "But sir, this candidate, William cut in smoothly, has exactly what this company needs. Courage, creativity, and the rare ability to turn any ordinary situation into something unforgettable." Clara just sat there, trying and failing to process what had just happened. "So does this mean—" William's lips curled into a knowing smile. "Welcome to Smith Global, Clara." Still frozen in shock, Clara could only blink. "And bring those brigadeiros tomorrow," he added casually. I'm starving. Her brain short-circuited. Brigadeiros? Out of all the things happening, that was what he was focused on? She barely managed a response. Sure thing, coffee boss. And just like that, the strangest, most chaotic, and somehow most successful interview in the company's history came to an end. Clara walked out of the room feeling like she had just survived an earthquake. Her legs were jelly, her mind was spinning, and for some reason, she was still clutching the crumpled $20 bill she had tried to give William in the elevator. She stared at it, then sighed. Is this a sign from the universe, or just solid proof that I'm a walking disaster? She muttered while weaving through a sea of perfectly polished executives who looked like they had never experienced public humiliation in their lives. What she didn't know, what she wouldn't realize until much later, was that William hadn't hired her because of her stellar qualifications. He hadn't even hired her despite her streak of disasters. He had hired her simply because he wanted to, well, from the moment he'd seen that girl tangled in her own dress in the building's reflection, something inside him, maybe a long-forgotten heart muscle or whatever part of the brain controlled humor, had woken up. Clara was a breath of fresh air in his otherwise predictable, overly air-conditioned corporate world. When Clara got home, still dazed, Elise was already waiting, with a pot of Brigadeiro in hand and way too much enthusiasm. So, Elise started, shoving a spoonful into Clara's mouth, were you fired before or after the interview? Clara barely managed to chew before answering, I got hired. Elise froze mid-chew. Hired? How? Did you bribe them, threaten them, hypnotize the interviewer? No clue, Clara admitted, throwing up her hands. I was a complete disaster. I spilled water, nearly fell out a window, spilled coffee on the CEO, and then called him the coffee guy, and somehow he still hired me. Elise choked on her Brigadeiro. The CEO? You spilled coffee on the CEO and walked out with a job? Clara, you're a legend. Clara threw a pillow at her. Don't compliment me, I'm still trying to process this. They spent the night laughing, joking that Clara must have some accidental superpower that turned public humiliation into job offers. But deep down, Clara had no idea what she was walking into. She had no clue what her first day at Smith Global would bring. The next morning, Clara made an attempt at looking professional. White blouse, pencil skirt, a pair of heels she had unearthed from the back of her closet, likely belonging to some great-aunt who had danced bolero in the ADS. Soon as she walked into the building, she felt it. The stares, she wasn't imagining it, people were actually watching her. Like wildfire, the news of her unusual hiring had spread across the office. Is that the coffee girl? A marketing analyst whispered. I heard she's William's niece. Or his secret lover. Or a witch, an intern replied. Which makes sense, someone in the background agreed. Completely unaware of her growing urban legend status, Clara grabbed her temporary badge and took the elevator to the executive floor. Her new workplace? Her desk, right outside William's office. That should have been her first warning sign. Her first task was simple: organize William's digital files. But for Clara, simple was a suggestion, not a reality. She started well. 5 minutes in, she had mixed up folders, accidentally sent confidential documents to the HR printer, and somehow set William's email to automatically reply with a GIF of a dancing llama. Which, unfortunately, was now greeting a group of very serious Chinese investors. William stepped out of his meeting, opened his email, and blinked. Clara? He called, his voice carefully controlled. She peeked into his office, already looking guilty. Was it me? It was. He pointed at the screen. Do you think this llama inspires corporate confidence? She tilted her head. Depends on the company. William shook his head, but instead of being angry, he smiled. Congratulations, you've officially set a new record for chaos in under 2 hours. Clara gave an exaggerated bow. I'm efficient at what I do. The days that followed, absolute chaos. Clara was a magnet for tiny disasters. She tried making coffee for William and somehow set off the fire alarm. She tripped over her own shoelace and sent a stack of contracts flying. She answered an international call, thought it was a prank, and responded in a mix of English and dramatic telenovela Spanish. Each incident left William torn between laughing and getting a migraine. But the strangest thing? he never really got mad. If anything, Clara's presence brought a kind of energy the executive floor had never seen before. Gossip exploded. She's a spy sent to test William's patience. No, she's secretly a genius in disguise. I'm telling you, and somehow, against all logic, William didn't regret hiring her for a second, because for the first time in years, work was actually fun. Or maybe she's the long-lost daughter of some elusive billionaire. I bet she saved his life in another lifetime. As the office buzzed with increasingly absurd rumors, Clara simply carried on being herself. And for reasons he couldn't quite explain, William found that oddly refreshing. One day, an important business dinner with foreign investors was scheduled, and, to everyone's surprise, William decided to bring Clara along. "You want me to attend a high-level corporate dinner?" Clara asked, wide-eyed. "Are you absolutely sure? I'm a walking catastrophe." "Precisely," William replied with a smirk. "I don't even have anything remotely appropriate to wear." "The company will take care of it. Can I focus on eating more than talking? In fact, I highly encourage it." On the night of the dinner, Clara arrived in a stunning red dress, handpicked by Elise, who insisted, "You need to make an impression." Her heels were so dangerously high they could probably double as self-defense weapons. Nervous but determined to mask it, Clara did what she did best: talked non-stop. Everything was going relatively smoothly until she spotted one of the clients carrying a tray of appetizers. Without a second thought, she called out, "Hey, sir, could you bring me one of those really stuffed chicken croquettes? I'm feeling extra fancy tonight." The sir in question? One of the most influential investors in all of Asia. The room fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. William closed his eyes, bracing for impact. Clara turned to stone. Then, against all odds, the investor erupted into laughter. Not just a chuckle, but full-bodied, wine-through-the-nose laughter. And just like that, what should have been a career-ending moment turned into an unexpected advantage. The clients adored Clara's spontaneity. On the drive home, William stole a glance at her and said, "You are, without a doubt, the most brilliantly disastrous person I've ever met." Clara grinned. Was that a compliment or a medical diagnosis? Possibly both. The next morning, determined to embody at least a shred of professionalism, Clara arrived at Smith Global armed with newfound corporate wisdom. She had spent the night consuming an entire guide on business etiquette, while simultaneously devouring cold pizza, and had even prepared a list of formal phrases to use with colleagues and superiors. Little did she know, professionalism was about to become her next great challenge. Her objective for the day was straightforward: survive 24 hours in the office without triggering a small-scale catastrophe. But she was Clara Collins. That goal was doomed before it even began. The first challenge arrived as soon as she stepped up to the electronic gate. She reached into her bag, ready to scan her ID badge, tried to, at least. Instead of her badge, she fished out a pack of gum and, without realizing, began rubbing it against the scanner, as if sheer persistence might convince the gate to let her through. "Are you attempting to bribe the security system with mint?" a familiar voice asked. Clara looked up to see William, coffee in hand, this time in a spill-proof cup, a clear sign he had learned from past encounters. "Oh, good morning, sir. William," she smiled nervously, finally retrieving her actual ID badge and swiping in. "Good morning, Clara," he smirked, already bracing himself for whatever chaos she would inevitably unleash. And chaos, as always, was inevitable. At her desk, Clara found a stack of documents and a neatly written note from Ethan, William's ever-efficient personal assistant. "Clara, please scan these contracts and save them as PDFs in the Drive folder labeled Urgent Contracts 2025. Let me know if you have any questions." A simple task for most people. Within half an hour, Clara had managed to scan the contracts upside down, save them as random image files, and rename them with cryptic titles like Help, Paperwork, and Mystery Document 3. And because fate clearly had a personal vendetta against her, she also managed to get the hem of her skirt caught on the drawer handle while reaching for more sheets. In her struggle to free herself, she sent an avalanche of office supplies cascading onto the floor: staplers, sticky notes, and paper clips, scattering like celebratory confetti. "Fantastic start, Clara," she muttered, crouched amidst the wreckage of her own making. That's when her phone rang. Snapping into her most professional tone, she answered, Executive office, Clara speaking. How can I assist you? On the other end, William's voice held a distinct trace of amusement. Any chance you could bring me a coffee? Absolutely, Clara responded, relieved to finally handle something that couldn't possibly go wrong. I'll be there in no time, hot and fresh. The plan was foolproof. Grab a cup of coffee from the hallway machine, deliver it to William's office, and bask in the satisfaction of completing a task without incident. Except, of course, nothing was ever foolproof when Clara was involved. But in the universe of Clara Collins, even the simplest task had the potential to turn into an Olympic-level challenge. What should have been a straightforward coffee run quickly escalated into yet another disaster. As she tried to pour the coffee, the machine erupted with the force of a geyser, splattering hot liquid onto her blouse and flooding the tray. Oblivious to the mess, she absent-mindedly added sugar to the wrong cup, stirred it with the tip of a pen, and because fate clearly had a sense of humor, accidentally hit the machine's safety button, triggering a loud maintenance alarm. By the time she finally arrived at William's office, the coffee looked less like a beverage and more like a bubbling alchemist's experiment gone wrong. The cup dripped ominously, and Clara, now decorated in a mosaic of brown stains, did her best to act natural. "Here's your coffee, sir. Fresh and full of personality," she announced cheerfully. William took in the disaster before him, then exhaled, accepting the cup as if preparing for an extreme taste test. "Thanks, Clara. I'll savor every drop." For the next few hours, Clara made a genuine effort to be productive. She tackled emails, though she accidentally signed one as LCA, accidental. She organized a spreadsheet, only to mistakenly log a $500,000 transaction under purchase of 5,000 chicken croquettes. And during a video call with German investors, she confidently greeted them not with good morning, but with good moolah. Needless to say, her reputation at Smith Global continued to flourish. By lunchtime, Clara decided she had earned a well-deserved break. She headed to the office kitchen to retrieve the instant noodles she had stashed in her bag. Unfortunately, she was unfamiliar with the company's state-of-the-art microwave. Instead of pressing start, she unknowingly activated grill mode. Her noodles promptly transformed into a miniature fireball. Thick smoke filled the break room, the fire alarm blared, and within minutes the entire floor was evacuated. Coughing and clutching what remained of her melted noodle cup, Clara found herself face-to-face with the building's security team, forced to explain that this was not an act of corporate sabotage, just a tragic combination of hunger and a profound lack of cooking skills. Back at her desk, now unofficially titled "The Girl Who Almost Blew Up the Break Room," Clara tried to redeem herself by focusing on a cost report, but fate had one more challenge in store. Answering an important international call, the phone rang. Clara sat up straighter, determined to handle this like a true professional. "Executive office, Clara speaking," she said confidently. "Hello, this is Mr. Wong from Hong Kong. I would like to speak to Mr. Smith." Her nerves got the best of her. In what she thought was fluent English, she responded, "Yes, Mr. Wong Kong, no problem. I call boss now, okay?" A pause, then politely, "Thank you very much, please." At that precise moment, William happened to be walking past her office. He had to lean against the wall, shaking with silent laughter. Finally, wiping away a tear, he grinned at her. "Clara, please, never change." And as if the universe wanted to wrap up the day in true Clara fashion, she ended it by accidentally locking herself inside the file room after pulling the wrong door shut. Because of course she did. She spent 30 minutes yelling for help until Ethan finally discovered her predicament. "How did you even manage to get locked in here?" he asked, more fascinated than concerned. "I have special talents," Clara replied, her expression completely serious. At the end of the day, William summoned her to his office. "Have a seat," he said, motioning to the chair in front of his desk. Clara sat cautiously. "Am I fired?" she asked, cutting straight to the point. Amazingly, no. William folded his arms. "But I have to ask, do you do this on purpose, or is it some kind of hidden talent?" "Do what?" she asked, feigning pure innocence. "Every day with you feels like a live episode of a prank show. Today alone you set noodles on fire, confused German investors with chickens, and nearly caused a financial crisis over 5,000 chicken croquettes." "The croquette thing was an honest mistake," she defended, "and as for the rest, I don't do it on purpose. Life just hates me a little." William chuckled, shaking his head. Well, it might sound crazy, but he exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. I like it. You do? Clara blinked in disbelief. This company used to be cold, boring, predictable. Then you came along and turned every single day into an event. I haven't laughed this much in years. So? Is that a compliment? It's more like a certificate of collective insanity. William stood up, smirking. Go home, Clara. Tomorrow's another day of chaos. Clara grinned. Don't worry, boss. I promise to bring the full apocalypse tomorrow. The next morning, Clara arrived at Smith Global, determined to break the cycle of disasters. This time, she kept things simple. No twisted straps, no rogue clothing tags, and even brought her own coffee in a spill-proof travel mug. Today, nothing is going to catch me off guard, she muttered to her reflection in the elevator. But, as always, the universe had other plans for Clara Collins. The moment she stepped into the office, Ethan came rushing toward her, looking genuinely distressed. Clara, you need to accompany Mr. Smith to a business dinner tonight. Clara choked on her coffee. A dinner with clients? Me? Ethan shrugged. Direct orders from him. He said he needed your chaotic energy to make the evening more interesting. Chaotic energy? Clara put her hands on her hips. Am I an assistant or a circus act? Depends on the day, Ethan smirked. The car will pick you up at 7. Get ready, it's a high-class event. At precisely 6:59 p.m., Clara stepped out of her apartment, wearing a sleek black dress borrowed from Elise and a pair of heels that felt like medieval torture device. She climbed into the car, where William was already waiting, looking effortlessly impeccable in his tailored suit. Good evening, boss. Clara attempted a formal tone. Good evening, Hurricane, he replied, barely hiding a smirk. Seriously, why am I going to this dinner? Wouldn't it make more sense to bring someone, I don't know, competent? He met her gaze, amused. If the conversation gets dull, at least I know you'll provide some chaos to liven up the night. Wow, I feel so valued, Clara crossed her arms. From office mascot to official dinner wrecker. William chuckled as the car pulled away, heading toward the most sophisticated restaurant in town. The moment Clara stepped inside, she knew she was completely out of her element. Everything sparkled. The marble floors, the crystal glasses, even the napkins looked like they belonged on a fashion runway. Determined to walk gracefully, she took a step forward, and immediately got her heel caught in the carpet, sending her stumbling straight into William's arms. I'm fine, she announced way too loudly, scrambling to regain her dignity. I'm sure you are, William murmured, barely suppressing his laughter. They were led to a private table where 2 Chinese investors, a German businessman, and, to Clara's surprise, a smiling man holding a tray of appetizers, were already waiting. Without thinking, Clara spoke. Sir, could I get a well-stuffed chicken croquette? I'm feeling fancy tonight. William turned so fast he nearly gave himself whiplash. Clara, he's not a waiter. I'm not, the man interjected, laughing, but I like your spontaneity. I'm Mr. Wang, one of the lead investors tonight. Clara's face turned so red she could have been mistaken for a tomato in heels. Oh, I'm so sorry. I just saw the tray and she flailed her hands in helpless explanation. To her relief, Mr. Wang burst into laughter, so hard it set off a chain reaction around the table. That was great! Finally, a business dinner that doesn't feel like a funeral. William shot Clara a look that was equal parts relief and exasperation. See, I told you your presence would be useful. Clara forced a smile, still internally debating whether vanishing into thin air was a viable option. Determined to avoid further catastrophe, she focused on staying quiet and keeping her limbs under control. But fate had other plans. When the waiter served an elegantly named soup she couldn't pronounce, Clara blew on her spoon a little too forcefully, sending a splash of broth straight onto the German businessman's pristine suit. Her eyes widened in horror. I'll wash that for you, she blurted, already reaching for his sleeve. Please don't, William interjected smoothly, stepping in before she could make things worse. Perhaps some sparkling water to help you relax? Mr. Wang suggested, amused. Clara quickly grabbed the bottle from the table, eager to regain some dignity. Unfortunately, in her haste, she absent-mindedly shook it before opening. The result? A spectacular explosion of fizz, drenching half the table like an unexpected monsoon. Clara blinked at the aftermath, then gave a weak grin. I'm a blessing. Just a very wet one. Laughter erupted around the table. Somehow, despite the chaos, the atmosphere remained light. Because for all her blunders, Clara had something no one else at that table did. She was unapologetically real. No pretense, no polished facade, and strangely enough, that put everyone at ease. When dessert arrived, she decided to impress them with some etiquette she'd picked up from a guidebook. She took a bite and smiled proudly. "This ice cream is very sophisticated." William, on the verge of tears from laughing, shook his head. "It's mousse, fancy ice cream, it's all cold." She shrugged. By the time dinner ended, the investors left in high spirits, calling it the most entertaining business meeting of the year. Clara, relieved she hadn't caused an international crisis, leaned against the exit wall and exhaled. "Was it really that bad?" William asked, stepping beside her. "It was like flying a plane without knowing where the brakes are," she sighed. "But they seemed to enjoy it." "I did too," he admitted. Clara narrowed her eyes. "Are you crazy or just a masochist?" "Neither," he replied, his tone suddenly more serious. "I just like real people. And you, Clara Collins, are the realest person who's ever walked into this restaurant." For once, Clara found herself at a rare loss for words. "Thank you, I think." William adjusted his tie. "And since we're being real, I have a proposal." Clara raised a brow. "Oh boy, here we go. I bet you $500 that I can turn you into a refined lady in 30 days. Clara burst into laughter so loud that a passing waiter turned to look. "Refined? Me? Have you ever seen me try to eat sushi with a fork?" "Exactly," William smirked. "If I succeed, you owe me a proper dinner, and if you're still a walking disaster, I owe you a week's worth of breakfast. On me. Deal?" Without a second thought, Clara shook his hand. Little did she know, this bet would turn into something far bigger than just free breakfasts. On her way home, she couldn't stop giggling. A refined lady? Oh, poor William, she muttered, shaking her head. The moment she stepped through her front door, she grabbed her phone and called Elise. "Elise, help me. I have 30 days to become a princess." "Princess? You're more like that tipsy fairy from fairy tales." "Exactly," Clara groaned. "And this time, I actually want to try." "All right, royal disaster, training starts tomorrow. But tell William he's going to need a miracle," Clara grinned. "A miracle? Elise, I am the miracle." A miracle, a mess, whatever you called it, between snacks, mishaps, and crazy bets, Clara and William had just taken another step toward something neither of them expected. A love story, straight out of a romantic comedy, or a police report, depending on the day. The next morning, Clara woke up to an unexpected notification on her phone. A message from William Good. "Morning, Hurricane. Your training starts today at 10 a.m. Air something comfortable, and try not to set anything on fire until then." Clara huffed, tossing her phone onto the bed. Comfortable? Does he think this is a spa day? After much internal debate and 3 frantic messages to Elise, Clara finally arrived at Smith Global, wearing a tracksuit covered in dancing avocados and LED sneakers that blinked with every step. She strutted into the conference room, where William was waiting with a woman who looked like she could silence an entire boardroom with just a glance. Her bun was flawless, her designer suit sharper than a legal contract, and her expression so precise it could probably judge the dust particles in the air. "Clara, meet Mrs. Penelope von Schneider," William said, fighting a smirk at her avocado ensemble. "She's an expert in etiquette, refinement, and most importantly, patience." Mrs. von Schneider's piercing gaze swept over Clara, taking in the blinking shoes, the cartoon avocados, and the sheer energy radiating from her. She took a deep breath. "This," she muttered under her breath, "will be the challenge of a lifetime." "Let us begin," Penelope said, pointing to a chair. "First lesson, posture." Clara sat up straight. Briefly, every adjustment Penelope made only turned her into a wobbly puppet, teetering between stiffness and collapse. After a few failed attempts, she slouched again. Penelope sighed. "Let's skip to table manners, that might be less painful." She set up a makeshift dinner table, complete with an intimidating array of silverware, plates, and glasses. Clara stared at the setup like it was a surgical kit. "Are we eating or performing open-heart surgery?" "First, the napkin," Penelope instructed. "It goes on your lap." Clara picked up the napkin, folded it into a tiny boat, and grinned. "I learned this from a tutorial. On your lap, Clara, on your lap." "Oh, right." She placed the napkin where it belonged, then immediately grabbed the wrong spoon for the soup. "That's the dessert spoon," Penelope corrected. Clara blinked. "Dessert soup? Rich people are weird." From the corner of the room, William watched, barely containing his laughter. The second lesson, walking with elegance, proved even worse. Penelope placed a thick book on Clara's head and instructed her to walk across the room with grace. 3 steps in, the book slipped. Clara lunged to catch it, accidentally knocking over a nearby tea tray meant for a British etiquette demonstration. Porcelain shattered. Tea flooded the carpet. Clara stood in the middle of the wreckage, raising her hand like she was hailing a cab. "Do I get a trophy for this?" "You get a survival medal," William deadpanned. Speech training was no better. "Good afternoon, it's a pleasure to meet you," Penelope demonstrated, her tone polished and refined. "Good afternoon, great to meet you, boss," Clara responded with a wink. Penelope inhaled sharply and muttered something in French that, judging by her tone, was definitely not a compliment. "Let's try something simpler. Introduce yourself at a gala dinner." Clara stood up, struck an exaggerated bow, and grinned. "Hey, red carpet crew. I'm Clara, expert in gourmet snacks and elevator dancing." William nearly fell out of his chair. "I don't think the world is ready for you, Clara." After a morning of noble failures, Penelope made an executive decision. "Let's have lunch at a fine dining restaurant. Perhaps in the right environment, she'll absorb some elegance by osmosis," she declared. "Let the world deal with it," Clara replied, adding a small dance step for flair. At the restaurant, Clara genuinely tried to follow the rules. She sat up straight for 2 full minutes. She used the correct silverware. By sheer accident, she even managed to order water without saying, "Hey boss, get me a cold one." But instinct is a powerful thing. When the waiter placed a dish of escargot in front of her, Clara eyed it like it might lunge at her. "Is this snail staring back at me?" Penelope nearly choked on her water. "It's a delicacy," she said, horrified. "It's equally disgusting," Clara countered, pushing the plate away. The final catastrophe came when she attempted to cut a piece of meat that was, unfortunately, smaller than her knife. The slice shot off her plate and landed perfectly onto William's. "Guess it's yours now, boss." She shrugged. Willem, already immune to her chaos, simply picked it up and ate it without a word. Back at the office, Penelope summarized the results of her training with the grim finality of a surgeon delivering bad news. "Mr. Smith, with all due respect, this girl is a lost cause." "I agree," William said. "But she's my lost cause," Clara grinned. Was that romantic or a threat of being fired? "Could be both." The week continued with more lessons, each more surreal than the last. In dance class, Clara stepped on William's feet so many times that he eventually resorted to dancing alone just to avoid further injury. In elevator etiquette, Clara pressed all the buttons by reflex, turning a quick ride into a full building sightseeing tour. In fashion class, Penelope carefully explained sophisticated color coordination. The next day, Clara showed up wearing a hot pink blazer, a lime green skirt, and a gold headband. "Did you come dressed as a corporate carnival?" William asked. "I call it executive tropical trend." She strutted down the hallway as if it were a runway. The employees, long accustomed to her antics, gave her a standing ovation. Over time, William realized that trying to turn Clara into a refined lady was like teaching a cat to fly. Pointless, chaotic, and absolutely hilarious. And somewhere along the way, he started to question why he ever wanted to change her in the first place. She was imperfect, spontaneous, a walking disaster. And yet, she made him laugh, more than he ever had in his life. On the final day of training, Penelope arranged a test. A simulated dinner at the office with carefully selected guests. Clara, of course, arrived late. Tripped at the entrance, naturally. And as if honoring a long-standing tradition, spilled the appetizer straight onto William's lap. But then something unexpected happened. When Penelope introduced her to the guests, Clara didn't panic. She simply gave a clumsy little bow, flashed a grin and said, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Clara Collins, the national pride of executive mishaps." Laughter rippled through the room. Even Penelope chuckled. And that's when it hit William. Clara didn't need to change. She just needed to be her later that night. As he walked her to the elevator, she tilted her head at him. "So, was I refined enough?" "No," he admitted. "But you were Clara. And that's much better. Was that a disguised flirt? Maybe. I liked it. They smiled at each other, and for the first time, Clara didn't trip while stepping out of the elevator. Back in his office, William caught her reflection in the window. Adjusting her hair, her eyes sparkling with mischief, he couldn't help but remember her first day. The inside-out dress, the chaos, the laughter that changed everything. And that night, William realized the biggest lesson of all wasn't Clara's, it was his. Because in the middle of his perfect, polished, predictable life, he had found exactly what was missing: a hurricane named Clara Collins. That same night, Clara lay in bed staring at the ceiling. She had survived an entire week with Penelope von Schneider, an achievement worthy of a bravery medal. Elise on the phone listened to every detail while munching on a bucket of caramel popcorn. "And you won't believe it, Elise, I almost killed Penelope with a champagne cork," Clara groaned, covering her face with a pillow. "But what about William?" Elise asked, far more interested in that part of the story. Clara fell into a thoughtful silence. William? Through all the chaos she had caused, he had remained kind. Instead of losing his temper, he had laughed. Rather than trying to change her, he had simply embraced the whirlwind she brought with her. "He's different," Clara admitted, her voice softer. "He's not just that cold, distant CEO you'd expect from some corporate drama. Beneath that perfect tie, he actually has a hidden sense of humor." "Oh, so you like him?" Elise teased. "It's not like that, he just—" Clara hesitated, then shook her head. "Never mind, it's ridiculous. He's William Smith, the CEO of Smith Global, and I'm the girl who showed up to her first day of work with her dress on inside out." Before Elise could press further, a notification flashed across Clara's phone screen. An invitation to an exclusive gala hosted by Smith Global. Elise widened. "I barely survived the last dinner and now I have to tackle a full-scale gala?" "You sure do," Elise confirmed, grinning. "And this time, we're going all out. No more avocado print sweatpants." The following evening, Clara stood in front of the mirror in her small apartment, barely recognizing the reflection staring back at her. Elise had outdone herself. A classic navy blue dress hugged Clara's frame, her hair was styled in an elegant updo, and her makeup was just enough to enhance her features without making her look like she had just stepped off a reality show makeover special. "Ready to steal the spotlight?" Elise asked excitedly. "I'm just hoping to make it through the night without taking out the appetizer table," Clara muttered, clutching her purse and taking a deep breath. Arriving at the venue felt like stepping into a scene from a movie. Crystal chandeliers bathed the room in golden light. Waiters glided past carrying trays of gourmet mini burgers. Glasses of white wine sparkled under the glow, and guests were dressed so impeccably they could have stepped straight out of a high-fashion editorial. Clara hesitated at the entrance and immediately caught her heel on the red carpet. William, who had been standing just a few feet away, saw it unfold in real time. Moving swiftly, he reached her before she could take a full tumble. "Of course," he said, steadying her effortlessly. "It wouldn't be a Smith Global event if you didn't nearly take out half the decoration." "I was just going for a dramatic entrance," Clara said quickly, trying to play it off. "You know, make an impression?" "Oh, you definitely make an impression," William replied, his lips curving into a smirk. "Come on, I want to introduce you to some people." To Clara's surprise, as William guided her through the crowd, not a single person looked horrified by her presence. Quite the opposite. Some employees even— Clara waved and flashed a bright smile, looking every bit like an unexpected company celebrity. "Why are they staring at me like that?" she whispered to William. "Maybe because you're the first assistant in company history to make the CEO laugh every single day," he replied. "At this point, you're practically a corporate legend." A warm flush crept up Clara's cheeks, but before she could think of a comeback, a passing waiter caught her eye, carrying a tray of mini hot dogs. Instinctively, she grabbed one, only for the sauce to betray her, dripping unceremoniously onto her dress. "You have got to be kidding me, I just got here," she muttered, grabbing a linen napkin and dabbing at the stain in frustration. William picked up another napkin but made no move to help, too amused by the spectacle of her wrestling with a rogue streak of ketchup. "You really need a survival guide for social events?" he teased. "Or maybe just a full-time babysitter," she shot back. As live music filled the ballroom, William was called away for a toast with the board members, leaving Clara momentarily alone. She wandered near the dance floor, watching as elegantly dressed couples moved in perfect harmony under the chandeliers. Wow. That's when she spotted her, a striking blonde in a silver dress, gliding toward William with a little too much familiarity for just a coworker. The woman placed a manicured hand on his shoulder, leaning in to whisper something in his ear. Clara didn't catch the words, but she didn't need to. The woman's too perfect smile was faker than a $3 bill. "Must be the ex," Clara murmured to herself, and she was right. Serena Montgomery, William's ex-fiancée and Smith Global's most persistent headache, had returned, and from the look in her eyes, she wasn't just here to mingle. "And who's this?" Serena asked, turning to Clara with the kind of scrutiny one might give a second-hand bag. "My assistant," William replied, his tone polite but distant. "Oh, of course, the infamous backward dress girl," Serena said, lips curving into a razor-sharp smile. Clara, never one to let a jab go unchallenged, beamed sweetly. "Pleasure to meet you. You must be the ex everyone talks about," she said, her voice laced with innocent charm. William nearly choked on his champagne. "That's right," Serena answered, her irritation barely masked. "I heard you left him standing at the altar. Any truth to that, or is it just office gossip?" Clara asked, tilting her head with a grin as if discussing the weather. For a fleeting moment, Serena was speechless. Before she could formulate a response, Clara casually plucked a mini-tart from a passing tray and turned to William. "I'm going to get a drink," she said breezily. "Good luck with your visitor." With that, she walked away, completely unbothered. William watched her go, the corners of his lips curving into an amused smile. Serena, on the other hand, was practically fuming. "Who is that girl, William?" she demanded. "Exactly who you just saw," he replied, his tone even. "And honestly, she's a lot more fun than either of us." At the bar, Clara ordered a lemonade, oblivious to the fact that William had followed and was now leaning casually against the counter beside her. "You know, you have an extraordinary gift for turning every situation into a spectacle," he remarked. "Is that a compliment?" she asked, eyeing him suspiciously. "Absolutely." His smile widened. "And you know what would make for an even bigger show? Here it comes," she sighed, rolling her eyes. "If you danced with me—" Clara glanced toward the dance floor, where couples glided effortlessly, their movements graceful and polished. Meanwhile, she could barely walk in a straight line on a normal day. "I'd rather not be responsible for a high-profile gala disaster," she quipped. "I'll take my chances." William extended his hand. She hesitated for half a second before slipping her fingers into his. Together, they stepped onto the dance floor, and as he placed one hand gently on her waist, Clara braced herself for the inevitable mishap. To her own surprise, she managed to follow his lead, at least for the first 20 seconds. "You're doing well," William said, his voice tinged with both approval and surprise. "That's because I'm concentrating," she replied. "The moment I relax, I'll probably trip over my dress. Then I'll catch you." Something about the way he said it made her pause. She looked up at him, and in that instant, the moment shifted. It wasn't just a dance anymore. It wasn't a lesson, a joke, or just another mishap waiting to happen. It was something more. And then, right on cue, Clara tripped, falling directly onto William. The air faces were suddenly mere inches apart. It was a near kiss, one of those moments where time stretched, where the music faded into the background, and all she could hear was the rapid thudding of her own heartbeat. "You caught me," she whispered. "I'll always catch you," he murmured in reply. They lingered there, frozen in place, until a passing waiter broke the moment, weaving through the crowd with yet another tray of appetizers. Clara quickly straightened, clearing her throat. "I'm going to grab another mini-tart. Want anything?" she asked, her voice a little too casual. "Just you is enough chaos for me," William said, his smile laced with amusement. And just like that, without another word, they drifted back onto the dance floor, just as if nothing had happened. The next morning, Clara woke up with an odd weight in her chest. It wasn't just the exhaustion from the gala, or the lingering ache in her feet from those ridiculous high heels that had left her teetering on the edge of catastrophe all night. It was the memory of that dance, that near kiss, that look from William that she absolutely, under no circumstances, should have spent the entire night replaying in her mind. With a groan, she rolled onto her side and buried her face in the pillow. "I cannot be falling for my boss," she mumbled. "This is straight out of a bad rom-com." A sudden buzz from her phone jolted her upright. Sleep still clung to her as she fumbled for it, but the second she saw the name on the screen, she nearly tumbled out of bed. William. "We need to talk. Something urgent." Clara swallowed hard. This was it. She was definitely getting fired. Maybe for tripping over him in front of half the company. Or worse. Maybe she'd ripped her dress and the whole thing had gone viral on some corporate gossip site. Wasting no time, she threw on the first clothes she found. A t-shirt emblazoned with a cartoon hot dog, and sweatpants that were once black but had since faded into an undefined shade of despair, then bolted out the door. By the time she burst into Smith Global, slightly breathless, William was already waiting in the conference room. His expression was that familiar mix of seriousness and quiet amusement, an expression that usually preceded something completely ridiculous. "Sit," he said, gesturing toward the chair across from him. Clara sank into it, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "If this is about the stumble during the dance, or the unfortunate sauce incident on the investment table, I can explain." "It's not about that," William cut her off, his tone unreadable. "Actually, it's a little worse." "Worse?" Clara's eyes widened. "You know that photo of us? The one taken at the exact moment of your legendary stumble?" William turned his phone toward her. Clara leaned in, only to see the image plastered across multiple corporate gossip sites, accompanied by a glaring headline. Smith Global's billionaire CEO caught in an intimate moment with his secret assistant. She let out a strangled groan and buried her face in her hands. "Intimate?" she exclaimed. "I nearly flattened you." "Yeah," William sighed, "but now it's a full-blown circus. The shareholders want answers, my mom already called thinking I'm about to get married, and Serena," he pinched the bridge of his nose, "sent a particularly nasty message asking if you're my new fiancé." Clara sat in stunned silence for a few beats. "So, what's the plan to fix this mess?" William took a deep breath, the kind people take before doing something incredibly reckless. "Will you pretend to be my girlfriend for a month?" Clara blinked, then blinked again, as if that would somehow make the words make more sense. "Me? Your girlfriend? It's just to cool things down with the press and keep the board from spiraling into a panic," he explained. "After a month, we'll stage a very amicable breakup and everything will go back to normal." Clara crossed her arms, narrowing her eyes. "This is, without question, the most insane request I've ever received." "It's your chance to live out a movie romance," William teased. She considered it for a moment, then smirked. "Fine, but on one condition." William raised a brow. "Which is?" "You're buying me breakfast every day. Pancakes, bacon, and orange juice. No exceptions." William chuckled. "Deal." They shook hands, and in that moment, Clara had the sinking realization that she was about to step straight into a whirlwind she never saw coming. That same afternoon, William made the announcement to the executive team. "Clara and I are dating." The silence that followed was so profound that even the air conditioner seemed to pause in shock. And, even who had been holding a stack of reports promptly dropped them onto the table. "Wait, seriously?" he gawked. "Like, for real? Completely serious," William confirmed without missing a beat. "You two?" one of the directors echoed, glancing between them in disbelief. "But she's unforgettable," William finished smoothly. "Exactly," the director agreed, nodding as if that was exactly what he had meant to say. Standing nearby, Clara tried to keep a straight face. Unfortunately, her attempt at composure resulted in her knocking over her glass of water, spilling it all over the table. "I'm just so overwhelmed with emotion," she deadpanned, grabbing a napkin to mop up the mess. The news spread through the office at lightning speed. Within the hour, Clara's phone was flooded with messages from colleagues across every department. "Did you seduce the boss? Spill the secrets. Is this a forbidden romance or just genius marketing? Are you about to become the new boss?" Clara stifled a laugh and replied to all of them with stickers of love-struck kittens. But the real chaos began the very next morning. Bright and early, Clara strode into the meeting room, where William was deep in discussion with investors. Without hesitation, she placed a lunchbox onto the table. "Honey, I brought your breakfast. Pancakes and bacon just the way you like it," she announced, loud enough for every single person in the room to hear. William flipped open the container and, nestled between the neatly stacked pancakes, found a napkin with a hand-drawn heart. "Very thoughtful," he remarked, biting back a smile. The investors exchanged glances, some clearly charmed by the display, others looking as if they'd stumbled into an alternate reality where CEOs were hand-fed breakfast by their assistants. But that was only the beginning. By lunchtime, Clara had taken things a step further. She went live on the company's Instagram, capturing herself and William at a cafe, sipping a milkshake from 2 straws. Old school romance, she captioned, dramatically fluttering her lashes at the camera. William, caught off guard but clearly entertained, played along. "Should we tell your parents?" Clara teased, still streaming. "They already know," William replied with an easy grin. "Actually, my mother wants to meet you, tomorrow." Clara nearly choked on her milkshake. "Tomorrow?" she repeated, wide-eyed. When the day of the visit finally arrived, Clara made every effort to look like the perfect, respectable girlfriend. With Elisa's expert guidance, she carefully selected an outfit. This time, there wasn't an avocado print in sight. William's mother turned out to be exactly as Clara had imagined, elegant, poised, and possessing the kind of piercing gaze that could strip a person down to their very soul within 5 seconds. "So, you're Clara," she said, her subtle smile revealing nothing. "Yes, ma'am," Clara replied, her posture rigid with nerves. "William seems different since you arrived," his mother mused, studying her closely. "He laughs more." "That tends to happen when someone almost burns down your company," Clara quipped, hoping humor would diffuse the tension. To her surprise, William's mother chuckled. "I like you. You're different from all the others," Clara exhaled, relaxing. "Though only slightly." In the days that followed, their so-called fake relationship became seamlessly woven into the office routine. Clara took to leaving sticky notes on William's computer screen with affectionate messages like, "Honey, don't forget to eat lunch. Take care, company sweetheart." William in turn responded with playful text messages. "Rescue me from this meeting, run away with me to a world without spreadsheets." What had started as an elaborate act was quickly turning into something dangerously real, because Clara found herself genuinely enjoying being around him. And William, despite his usual ability to keep his emotions in check, couldn't ignore the shift in the air whenever she was near. The moment everything changed happened at a press conference. In front of flashing cameras and a room full of reporters, William took Clara's hand and declared smoothly, "Every day with her is a surprise." Clara smiled, and for the first time, it wasn't just for the cameras. That night, back in her apartment, she dialed Elise with an urgency she hadn't expected. "I think I'm actually starting to like him. For real." "Obviously," Elise replied without missing a beat. "You're the lead character in a real-life romantic comedy." "This isn't a movie, it's my life," Clara groaned, burying her face in her hands. "And the fake dating contract is going to end. So what's your plan?" Clara remained silent. The truth was, she had no idea. All she knew was that for the first time in a long time, she wanted something to work out. She wanted this to work out. Meanwhile, across the city, William sat alone in his apartment, staring at his phone, completely unsure of how to process the fact that for the first time in years, someone had managed to make his heart beat differently, and that someone was the girl who once walked into his company with her dress inside out. The month was coming to an end, but what he felt? That didn't feel fake at all. The following morning, Clara walked into Smith Global with a bag of donuts in one hand and an oversized coffee in the other. As William's pretend girlfriend, she had a duty to uphold, and that duty? Introducing him to the grand tradition of Motivational Mondays, which, in her world, meant drowning the boss in sugar and caffeine until he momentarily forgot that it was still ridiculously early. But just as she reached the entrance, something, or rather, someone, stopped her in her tracks. A sleek black car pulled up at the front of the building, and stepping out of it was a woman who looked like she had just strolled off the cover of a high-fashion magazine. Flawless blonde hair, oversized sunglasses, a dress so perfectly tailored it might as well have been sculpted onto her body. And in her hand, a designer handbag that likely cost more than Clara's entire car. The woman spotted her immediately, her gaze sharp and intentional, like she already knew exactly who Clara was. Clara, on the other hand, had the sudden urge to use the bag of donuts as a shield. "You must be Clara," the woman said smoothly, approaching with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Yeah, and you are?" "Serena Montgomery, William's ex-fiancée." Clara nearly spilled her coffee all over her shoes. Of course, she knew who Serena Montgomery was. the infamous ex who had left William just days before their wedding to run off with a French chef. She'd heard the story at least 3 different ways over lunch with the marketing team. And none of those versions had ended well. "Oh, what a surprise," Clara said, forcing a polite smile. "Surprise? I'd call it more of a friendly visit," Serena replied smoothly, pushing her sunglasses up onto her head. "After all, it's nice to finally meet the one keeping my seat warm." Clara felt a flush creep up her neck. "Not just keeping it warm, sweetheart. I'm making it shine," she shot back, flashing a dazzling, toothpaste commissional white smile. Serena let out a short, amused laugh before spinning on her heels and strutting through the glass doors like she owned the entire building. Clara stood frozen for a moment, gripping the bag of donuts as if it were a stress ball. 5 deep breaths. 2 donuts, eaten back to back. Only then did she muster the energy to mutter, "This is going to be a problem." And with that, she followed the blonde inside. William was in the conference room when Serena walked in. His easygoing expression vanished the second he saw her. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice devoid of any warmth. "Oh, just taking a little trip down memory lane," she replied, settling into a chair like she still belonged there. Clara arrived just in time to catch the tension, stopping at the doorway. "Am I interrupting something?" she asked, despite very much wanting to know what was happening. "Of course not, dear," Serena cooed before William could answer, her tone syrupy sweet, laced with just enough venom to be dangerous. "In fact, stay. I've always been curious about who would be next in line after me." William exhaled slowly, rubbing a hand down his face in clear frustration. "Serena, this isn't a good time." "Oh, but it's always a good time to reconnect with the past," she countered smoothly. Clara, never one to bite her tongue, stepped fully into the room, slid into the seat next to William, and took his hand in hers. "I just love when exes manage to stay civil," she said with a bright, innocent smile. "Shows real maturity." Serena's gaze sharpened. "Does it?" Clara's smile never wavered. "Absolutely. And I, for one, am mature enough to know the difference between something real and a show for appearances." Beneath the table, she squeezed William's hand. Not gently, but in a way that clearly said, "Hold me back, or I'm launching a donut at her head." She leaned in slightly, voice lowering just enough to add a teasing edge. "You know what's real? The breakfast I brought William today. Donuts and pancakes, because he likes a happy breakfast." She tilted her head. "I bet you never even brought him a slice of toast." William wasn't sure whether to burst into laughter or crawl under the table. Serena rose gracefully from her seat and strode toward Clara, the sharp clicks of her heels echoing through the room like a countdown to war. "This isn't some fairy tale, sweetheart," she said coolly. "Oh, I know," Clara replied, tilting her head with a saccharine smile. "This is a romantic comedy, one where you're dangerously close to becoming the over-the-top villain." Serena let out an exasperated huff, snatched up her bag, and stormed out so forcefully that Clara wouldn't have been surprised if she'd left cracks in the marble floor. "You didn't have to provoke her," William said, though he was clearly fighting back a grin. "Oh, but I absolutely did," Clara countered. "That woman acts like she still owns your heart and your reserved parking spot." And just like that, the Cold War between Clara and Serena had officially begun. That very afternoon, Serena fired the first shot. She posted a throwback photo of herself and William dining at an opulent French restaurant, captioned, "Some memories last forever." Clara naturally refused to let it slide. She uploaded a series of Instagram stories featuring her and William on the couch, gleefully eating chicken nuggets straight from the box with the caption, "The Real Feast." Serena retaliated almost immediately, posting a picture of her and William aboard a luxury yacht, captioned, "Some connections can never be broken." Clara answered with a video of her and William struggling to paddle an inflatable boat in a kiddie pool. The feud exploded across social media, taking on a life of its own. Before they knew it, hashtags were trending, Team Clara for those rallying behind the quirky, unexpected romance, and Serena was here first for those convinced she was the rightful heir to William's heart. William, caught in the middle of the viral spectacle, scrolled through the chaos with a mix of disbelief and reluctant amusement. "You two are going to single-handedly destroy my corporate reputation," he told Clara, shaking his head. "Or," she countered, popping a nugget into her mouth, "make you the most famous CEO in America." The tipping point came at a high-profile company event where Serena made her next move. Seizing the microphone, she launched into an impromptu speech, weaving a flawless narrative about the good old days, painting a picture of her and William as the most idyllic couple in history. Clara, standing at the back of the room, folded her arms and smirked. This war was far from over. Clara had reached her limit. Without hesitation, she snatched a spare microphone and strode onto the stage. "Just to set the record straight," she said, her voice steady and unwavering, "I may not have glamorous yacht photos or candlelit dinners in Michelin-starred restaurants, but in the past few weeks, William has smiled more with me than he has in years with anyone else." The room erupted into applause. Serena's expression darkened, her perfectly composed facade cracking. Without another word, she spun on her heel and stormed off the stage, her departure as dramatic as her entrance. But before Clara could even process what had just happened, she felt herself being pulled into a firm, unexpected embrace. Right there, in front of everyone. "William, you're absolutely insane," he murmured against her ear, his voice carrying both amusement and something else she couldn't quite place. "And you loved every second of it," she whispered back, unable to hide her grin. In the days that followed, Serena all but vanished. Clara had officially won the meme war. Yet, despite her victory, something gnawed at her, that hug. The way William had kept holding her hand afterward, long after the cameras were gone. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. And most of all, the way he had looked at her. Not like he was merely grateful. Not like he was indulging in a performance, but as if, for the first time, he was really seeing her. As if she was something more. Something real. Clara had known from the moment she fumbled with that ridiculous dress in the Smith Global lobby that her life was about to turn upside down. But nothing had prepared her for this, for the way her heart stuttered whenever he was near, for the terrifying, exhilarating possibility that maybe, just maybe, this had stopped being an act, and that scared her more than anything. Let's have a little fun with those who only read the comments. Pepsi in the comments, only the real ones will get it. Now, let's get back to the story. The next morning, Clara stepped into the company elevator, determined to act like absolutely nothing was happening. She was still the same old Clara, the girl who tripped over thin air, mistook clients for waiters, and had a talent for unintentionally turning board meetings into stand-up comedy routine. And that was exactly how she planned to keep it. But as the elevator doors slid shut, she realized she wasn't alone. At the very last second, William stepped in, balancing his phone in one hand and, oddly enough, a cup of tea in the other. Clara blinked. "Tea?" she asked, eyeing him suspiciously. "Are you sick?" "You got me hooked on it," he admitted, lifting the chamomile tea bag as proof. "Ever since that impromptu dinner at your apartment?" Clara really tried not to smile, but she couldn't not notice it. William Smith, CEO, known coffee addict man whose caffeine preferences could probably power a jet engine, was drinking tea. "The next step is getting you to do 90s boy band karaoke," she teased, arms crossed. "That will never happen," he said firmly, not even under torture. And then the elevator jolted, the lights flickered, and just like that, nothing. Clara glanced up. "No way. Did the elevator just—" William pressed a few buttons. Nothing. Tried calling reception. No signal. He sighed. "We're stuck. Great. Of course we are. With me, the queen of bad luck," Clara groaned, leaning against the wall. "I told you this reverse dress was a curse." William exhaled slowly, shaking his head before giving her a sideways glance. "At least we're not alone." Clara stared at the floor, her nerves betraying her. Being trapped in a tiny space with William wasn't exactly helping her brilliant new strategy, pretending she didn't feel anything unusual around him. "Want to play something?" she blurted out, desperate to fill the silence. William raised an eyebrow. "Like truth or dare? Unless you have a deck of cards hidden somewhere, then yeah." His lips curled into a smirk. "Are you sure? I happen to be exceptionally good at this game," Clara scoffed. "I highly doubt that. All right, your turn first. Truth or dare?" "Truth." "Do you actually like working here?" he asked, clearly taking it easy on her. Clara grinned. "I do. Especially because I never know if I'm going to get fired or promoted after each new disaster." William chuckled. Fair enough. Your turn. Truth or dare? Truth, she hesitated. Then, on impulse, she took a chance. Why did you hire me, even after that train wreck of an interview? A flicker of something crossed William's face. He went quiet for a moment. Then finally he said, Because you made me? He exhaled, almost as if reluctant to admit it. You made me laugh. Really laugh. For the first time in a long time. Clara's breath caught. A warmth spread through her chest. She quickly cleared her throat. Okay, my turn. Not so fast, William interrupted smoothly. Truth or dare? Clara narrowed her eyes. Dare, let's switch things up. A slow, knowing smile spread across his lips. He stepped in closer. Close your eyes. Her heartbeat stuttered. What? Why? It's the dare, he said simply. Close them. Clara swallowed hard but did as she was told, suspicion prickling at her spine. Now, William murmured, his voice lower, teasing, tell me the very first thing that crossed your mind when you saw me, before you knew I was your boss. Clara's eyes flew open, startled. That's not a dare, she protested. That's a question. William simply shrugged, utterly unapologetic. Consequence of trusting me. She sighed, shaking her head. Fine. I thought, wow, what a ridiculously handsome man, probably a model, or maybe a perfume salesman. William threw his head back, laughing. A deep, genuine laugh that made her stomach flip. A perfume salesman? Are you serious? I have the worst track record when it comes to first impressions, she admitted. I mistook you for a delivery guy once, remember? His grin widened. How could I forget? Just then the elevator lurched violently. Clara yelped, lost her footing, and crashed straight into William's arms. Her breath hitched. They were so close now she could count every one of his eyelashes, could feel the warmth radiating from his skin. She swallowed. I think, she whispered, it's my turn to ask a question. Outside the game? His grip on her waist didn't loosen. Go ahead. She hesitated, then met his gaze. Is all of this, our fake relationship, still just a lie? William stilled for a moment. He didn't say a word. Then, instead of answering, he leaned in and kissed her. It was awkward, rushed. Clara was still clutching a bag of donuts and William had a precariously balanced cup of tea. But in their own messy, imperfect way, it was perfect. By the time the elevator jolted back to life and the doors slid open onto the executive floor, their hair was a little disheveled, their lips tingling. And of course, everyone saw it. Within seconds, Clara's phone buzzed. Elise. I knew it. You two got stuck and kissed. I win the bet. Before Clara could reply, William casually took her phone and typed back. William, nothing's been confirmed. We might have just been rehearsing for a play. Clara burst out laughing. In the days that followed, something shifted. The here so-called fake relationship no longer felt so fake, but neither of them dared to acknowledge it. Instead, they kept doing what they always did. Clara knocking things over. William picking up the pieces. Clara coming up with absurd ideas. William desperately trying to salvage his reputation. And somewhere between one catastrophe and the next, they were falling. Of course, peace was never meant to last, not with her still in the picture, Serena. And the moment she heard about Clara and William being trapped in an elevator and walking out looking like they had just glimpsed paradise, she wasted no time. That same day, she posted an old photo of her and William, captioned, "Some loves never fade." Clara wasn't one to back down. She fired back with a selfie of her and William wearing matching dog-shaped slippers, captioned, "Some loves wear dog slippers." And just like that, the meme war resumed. Only this time, William joined in. He posted a vintage photo of himself and Serena, adding a caption that sent the internet into chaos. Some exes never move on, Clara blinked at him, stunned. You joined my game? William met her gaze, unwavering. I joined your life, he corrected. And I'm loving every second of it. For the first time, Clara realized that maybe, just maybe, what had started as an improvised romantic comedy was slowly turning into something far more serious. And the scariest part, she loved the idea. She couldn't quite put her feelings into words, but ever since that kiss in the elevator, her entire world felt like it had flipped upside down. And strangely, she had no desire to set it right. William was still her boss, but something had changed. The lingering glances, the quiet, unprovoked smiles, the accidental touches. That didn't feel so accidental anymore. It was like their story had reached that pivotal moment in a rom-com, the one where no one really knows what's happening, but everyone is rooting for the main couple. The only problem? Clara wasn't sure she was ready to be the lead in this story. And then, everything fell apart. The morning after the kiss. The one she still hadn't fully processed. Serena made her final move. In an exclusive interview with a corporate gossip site, she poured her heart out, complete with perfectly timed tears and dramatic pauses, confessing that she still loved William, and that she was willing to do whatever it took to win him back. Not long after, Elise burst into Clara's office, gripping her phone like it might explode. She basically just declared all-out war. Clara exhaled, staring at the screen. I saw... Clara sank her teeth into a chocolate donut with the kind of force that suggested she wished she were biting into something or someone else. But you know what? She said, chewing with determination. She may have the media, she may have the designer wardrobe, she may have the followers, but I have something she'll never have. Elise leaned in. And what's that? A full history of shared public humiliation with William, that bonds people. She tried to make it sound like a joke, but the weight in her chest told a different story. Because, deep down, Clara didn't want to be dragged into some ridiculous competition with a supermodel ex-fiancé. She wanted William to choose. No scandals, no manipulation, just choose. And so, that afternoon, she did something no one saw coming. She resigned. I can't stay here, she told William, handing him an envelope containing her resignation letter. Not like this. Not with everything that's happening. William stared at her, blindsided. Clara, you don't have to do this. Yes, she said, forcing a smile. I do. She exhaled, steadying herself. I'm great at creating chaos, but now it's time for me to learn how to clean up my own mess. And before he could say anything, before she could change her mind, she walked out, leaving William standing in the middle of the office, gripping the envelope as if it were a piece of his own heart. In the days that followed, Clara disappeared. No replies to messages, no returned calls, silence. She spent her days binge-watching terrible reality shows and eating ice cream straight from the tub, while Elise tried, repeatedly, to knock some sense into her. You can't just run away, Elise insisted. This isn't some coming-of-age teen movie. I know, Clara muttered, her mouth full of ice cream. But, unfortunately, running away happens to be my secret talent. Then, a week later, an envelope arrived. Not just any envelope, a golden one, embossed with the unmistakable Smith Global logo. Curious, Clara tore it open. Invitation Smith Global Annual Event Theme, a celebration of originality. At the bottom, a handwritten note. It wouldn't be a true celebration without you here. With care, William Elise snatched the invitation from Clara's hands and waved it dramatically. This isn't just an invitation, this is a romantic summons. Or a trap, Clara countered, narrowing her eyes. Or maybe, Elise smirked, a romantic trap. She leaned in. You have to go. And not just go, you have to make an impression. Clara was silent for a moment, deep in thought. Then, a slow, mischievous grin spread across her face. An impression, she repeated. That's what I do best. On the night of the event, Clara made her grand entrance. Wearing that dress, the very same blue dress from her infamous interview, and of course, it was completely inside out. Again, the tag dangled proudly over her chest, the hem was uneven, one strap sat awkwardly twisted. As she stepped into the grand lobby, all eyes turned. Some stared in sheer disbelief. Others watched with something that almost resembled admiration. For the woman who had fearlessly embraced her title as the company's official walking disaster, up on stage delivering his opening remarks, William glanced up and froze mid-sentence, and then he laughed. Really laughed, just like he had that very first day, and that's why he attempted to continue. But the words wouldn't come. So instead, he did something no one expected. "You know what?" he said, setting his note cards aside. "I'm changing the theme of this event." With that, he stepped off the stage, grabbed the microphone, and strode straight toward Clara. "Tonight," William announced, locking eyes with her, "we're not just celebrating originality." His voice softened. "We're celebrating her, the woman who taught me that perfection is overrated. That sometimes the best things in life happen when everything goes spectacularly wrong." Clara felt her face heat up, but she smiled. "This person," William continued, "showed me that laughing until your stomach hurts is better than pretending to have it all together. That a spilled coffee can be the beginning of an unforgettable story. And that true love—" He paused, his voice steady, but his expression anything but. "True love is the kind that doesn't fix your flaws, it embraces them. Right side up, or inside out, then right there in the middle of the grand lobby." William knelt down. Gasps echoed through the room. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small velvet box, and opened it. "Clara Collins, will you marry me and help me turn every single day of my life into a beautifully chaotic romantic comedy?" The room erupted. Applause, cheers. Elise was sobbing like it was her proposal. Clara, eyes brimming with tears, took the microphone. "Only if I can keep wearing my dresses the wrong way," William chuckled. "Deal. And I never want to hear a single complaint. Never," he promised, laughing. "Then it's a yes." They kissed, right there. As guests tossed makeshift flower petals, which, in true Clara fashion, were actually cocktail napkins, the event transformed into a double celebration. Smith Global's annual gathering, and the CEO's happily ever after. Their first dance? A spontaneous, laughter-filled twirl in the middle of the room, which ended with Clara slipping, spilling juice on her dress, and the two of them laughing like nobody was watching. A few months later, the wedding happened. But of course, it was anything but traditional. Clara walked in with her veil caught on her shoe. William forgot half his vows. The cake collapsed before they even had a chance to cut the first slice. And yet, none of it mattered, because in the middle of the mess, the chaos, the uncontrollable laughter, one thing was undeniable. They had found happiness in the most unexpected place. As the night drew to a close, they danced barefoot beneath a canopy of twinkling lights, their makeshift dance floor glowing like something out of a dream. William leaned in, his breath warm against Clara's ear. "This was the most perfect wedding in the world," Clara laughed, shaking her head. "Even with my torn dress, the fallen cake, and my dad crying so much he actually fainted, especially because of that." His smile was soft, full of something deeper than words. With gentle hands, William cupped Clara's face, their laughter still lingering in the air, blending with the slow melody that played around them. "With you, even chaos feels perfect," he murmured, his gaze shining with certainty. Clara grinned. "Then brace yourself, because I'm a hurricane." And before he could reply, she pulled him into a kiss bursting with love, aced with laughter, and sealed with the unshakable truth that no matter what, together, they would always find a way to turn any disaster into their happiest moment of all. What did you think of William and Clara's story? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. On a scale from 0 to 10, how would you rate their journey? And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new one. Want more heartwarming and emotional stories? Click here on the final screen to keep watching.